Welcome to Gurukul's Catch 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma, and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on the Gurukul's 100 Days to CAT test series. Now, in case you want to take these 5 VA questions as a test, all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in and sign up for the 100 Days to CAT test series. In case you want to follow along with this video, then this is your first question. Pause the video here, solve this question, and then we'll move on to the second question. This is your second question. Pause the video here, solve this question, and then we'll move on to the third question. This is your third question. Pause the video here, solve this question, and then we'll move on to the fourth question. This is your fourth question. Pause the video here, solve this question, and then we'll move on to the last question of the day. This is your fifth question, guys. Pause the video here and solve this, and then we'll move on to the explanations of all these 5 questions. Okay, so this first question is a ParaJumble type of question. Now, over here, let's just read through these 4 sentences and try to identify what's the theme of this paragraph. For perception is the original kind of knowledge inseparable from animal nature, in which everything that gives direct satisfaction to the will presents itself. Okay, so now he's talking about perception as the original kind of knowledge, so probably he'll talk about different types of knowledge, and he's telling us that in perception, everything that gives us direct satisfaction is presenting itself to the will. So the victory of knowledge of perception over thought affords us pleasure. So probably the 2 types of knowledge that he's talking about are the knowledge of perception and thought, and he's saying that yes, knowledge of perception is better than knowledge of thoughts. Why? Because it gives us pleasure. With thinking, the opposite is the case. It's the second power of knowledge, the exercise of which has always demanded some and often considerable exertion. That means what? You think, you get tired. Okay, so obviously this is the second type of knowledge, the thought type of knowledge that he's talking about. And in 4, he's saying it's the medium of the present of enjoyment and delight. Moreover, it's attended with no exertion. When he's saying this part, with no exertion, I obviously have to make a reasonable assumption that it should become knowledge of perception. So, very clearly, in 2, he is introducing the 2 types of knowledge. So, 2 should be my introduction statement, which makes it my first statement. And then he's saying that because perception is the original kind of knowledge, it's inseparable from human nature. So, this is extending the idea that I'm getting in 2. Okay, so 1 should be my second statement. And then, it is the medium of the present, okay, of enjoyment and delight. Moreover, it's attended with no exertion. That's an addition to perception, right? That's an argument that is going along with perception. So 4 should be my third statement, and obviously at the end, since these 3 are talking about perception, then he comes and he talks about thinking in the third statement. So our correct order should be 2, 1, 4 and 3. Now that we've done with this question, let's go into the second question. Now this is your second question. Again, this is also a ParaJumble type of question. So let's look at what is this paragraph talking about, and then we'll put it into the common theme. He says, but creativity invites questions of its own that go beyond the purview of those other fields. So first things first, but that means there should be something that's opposite to this idea before this. And second thing, of those other fields, my question now stands, which other fields, correct? And creativity raises a wealth of philosophical issues. Again, when he's saying and, that means there should be some idea which is definitely in line with this idea too, correct? So which idea is that? So obviously these both will not be my first statements, is what I feel so far. Third one, since arts is such a salient domain of creativity, you might assume at first that philosophy of creativity is a philosophy of art or aesthetics or a branch thereof. Fair enough, fair enough. Now one thing that I notice is that when he's talking about these things, okay, these could be the other fields that he has talked to us about. Okay, now fourth one, few things shape the human experience as profoundly or pervasively as creativity does. That means as importantly or as deeply as creativity does. So this fourth one seems like a very simple introduction, because this is broad enough and it is introducing the concept that we are talking about throughout this passage, which is about creativity, right? So obviously I'm going to take 4 to be my starting statement, yes, and amongst these 3 statements, I see that 2 is adding to the philosophical issues, the wealth of philosophical issues that creativity is raising. Okay, now this goes in line with how important and deep this whole concept of creativity is. So I'm going to go for 2 next. But creativity invites questions of its own that go beyond the purview of those other fields. Again, so far we've not seen which other fields, right? So if I'm looking at 3 now, since art is such a salient domain of creativity, you might assume at first that the philosophy of creativity is philosophy of art or aesthetics. Now here I have an assumption which I can take as 3 after the second one is done, because we're talking about philosophical issues, and then he's talking about, you know, philosophy of art or philosophy of aesthetics. So there's a echo over there for me. Now if I'm looking at 4, 2, 3 together, then 1, but creativity invites these questions. So he's challenging this assumption over there. So 1 would come to the end, and my correct answer should be 4, 2, 3 and 1. Now let's go into the third question. So this third question is nothing but a para completion type of question. Yes, he says this, the sentence says this was years in the making but fast tracked. So this was going on for a long time, but fast tracked during the pandemic when people started being more mindful about their food. Okay, great. So I have to find a blank where people started becoming more mindful. Okay, and this process should have been going on for a while. So paragraph. For millennia, ghee has been a venerated staple of the subcontinental diet. That means very respected staple of subcontinental diet. But it fell out of favor a few decades ago when saturated fats were largely considered to be unhealthy. Okay, so saturated fats were considered to be unhealthy. Great. So here what do I see? Ghee was our diet, original diet, and we respected it a lot, but we stopped eating it a while ago. But more recently, as the thinking around saturated fats is shifting globally, Indians are finding their own way back to this ingredient that is so integral to their cuisine. So here, now I see that yes, people are coming back to their own way. Okay, now is that enough for me to put it over here? Absolutely not. I have to check if this also continues. So people started being more mindful about their food. He explained. Now my first question that comes to me is, who is this he? Okay, if I were to answer that he part of the question, for Karmakar, now I could probably think that Karmakar is the he, right? So definitely not gonna place this sentence in the blank number 2, neither in 1. So for Karmakar, a renewed interest in ghee, again, renewed interest in ghee is emblematic of a return to basics movement. So these give me an echo that we are coming back, okay, movement in India. So I could probably take this sentence and place it here because I have Karmakar, which is a noun, and the he, which is a pronoun, which will be adding to it. So 3 could be a possible location. This movement is also a part of the overall trends of slow food. In keeping with the movement's philosophy, ghee can be produced locally even at home and has inextricable cultural ties. Fair enough. Definitely this should come here, because once I see that, okay, everything has been fast tracked, people are now mindful, then I can say that this movement is also a part of. Okay, that means this idea is now moving further. Now look at here, at basic level, ghee is type of clarified butter. So this moved out of the context altogether. So if I place it in 4, I'm risking moving out of the context altogether. So definitely 4 might not be my correct answer. The best possible answer should be 3, which means option D. Okay, now let's move on to the fourth question of the day. Again, this question is a para completion type of question. So the sentence says, this has meant a lot of uncertainty. My first part over here says, this, that means what has meant a lot of uncertainty is my question. Around what a wide scale return to office might look like in practice. So maybe some kind of a problem is happening. That's why they're not able to understand what would wide scale return to office look like. Great, fine. Paragraph says, bringing workers back to their desks has been a rocky road for employers. Obviously, that means this has been problematic for employers. So that much I can, deduce from this, problematic for employers and employees alike. So for both people, it's been problematic. The evolution of pandemic had meant that the best laid plans have often not materialized. Fair enough. This has meant a lot of uncertainty. If I just put this at 1, will it work out? Not really, because I do not yet talk about return to office policies. Okay, so this part, some people might think that bringing workers back to their desks is about return to work policies, but the introduction is not substantial enough for us to go to this this sentence as a following. So definitely not 1. The flow of workers back into the offices has been more of a trickle than a steady stream. That means very few people are coming back. Okay. Now, if very few people are coming back, then I can think, okay, if this is the case, then I'm not able to be sure of what would a lot of people coming back look like. Okay. So this sentence could fit in 2. All right. So this is one possible place for us to fit this in. Yet, while plenty of companies are still working through their new policies, some employees across the globe are now back at their desk. So, here we have the uncertainty, and here by this point, people have already come back. At least most of the people are coming back to their desk. So, definitely this sentence cannot go beyond the second blank. Okay. So definitely I'm not going to be taking 3 and 4, but let's just read through and let's see how these things work. Are they in tandem or not? So some employees across the globe are now back at their desk, whether they're on full-time or hybrid basis. That means that we are beginning to get some clarity. So do you see this part? Initially we were uncertain, okay, but now something happened, which is why we are getting the clarity. So this whole thing kind of fits perfectly. So definitely my answer would be 2, option number 2. Okay, so this is where this sentence would fit the best. So let's go to the last question of the day, guys. The discovery helps to explain archaeological similarities between the Paleolithic peoples of China, Japan and the Americas. Now, first things first, the question that I have is, which discovery is helping us? And, you know, where am I talking about? These 3 sections of people. These are the 2 things that I have to keep in mind while I'm attempting this question. Now, the paragraph says, the researchers also uncovered an unexpected genetic link between Native American and Japanese people. Okay, here I have talked about these 2 people, but people of China, not yet spoken about. So, I'm not going to bother putting this down in 1 because I have no evidence for China. Also, what is this discovery? Probably this genetic link, but maybe there could be another substantial discovery. So, I'm not going to, you know, hurry and rush and put it into 1. During the degalactation period, another group branched out from northern coastal China and traveled to Japan. Okay, fair enough. We were surprised to find that this ancestral source also contributed to the Japanese gene pool, especially the indigenous anus, says Lee. So here I understand that something happened and some, you know, part of the gene pool or a group of people branched out from northern coastal China and they've traveled to Japan. And over here, after they've traveled to Japan, these people must have contributed to the Japanese gene pool. So, maybe that is why there are some kind of archaeological similarities. So, definitely 2 needs to go off. Okay, after 2 is done, that is where I see that, you know, Japanese gene pool has been contributed to by these Chinese people and all. So, definitely 1 and 2 I'll take out. I'll come towards 3. They shared similarities in how they crafted stem projectile points for arrowheads and spears. Now, great. Again, I have this 1 point. If I'm talking about who these they are, okay, in this question, these they could be the Paleolithic people of China, Japan and the Americas, right? So, definitely for this pronoun, this noun could fit. So, 1 possibility is option number 3. Now, arrowhead, projectile points for arrowheads and spears. If I try to put it over here, this suggests that Pleistocene connection among the America, China and Japan was not confined to culture, but also to genetics. Now, this looks like a very, very, you know, a good option to put things in because again, this suggests, right? This suggests might talk about archaeological similarities. So, over here, amongst 3 and 4, out of these 2 options, 3 can still be attributed to the sentences that are previously given. And this they, instead of all of these people, could also be the people who have traveled from the northern coastal China to Japan. So, for us amongst 3 and 4, the best possible choice would be 4 and not 3 for 2 reasons. First, this suggests will be about the discovery. Second thing, we have a lot of echo that is coming up from the sentence to the paragraph. So definitely I'll be more fixated towards putting this at 4 than at 3. So our correct answer will be 4. Now, if you watched till here, please do drop that like because that motivates us to keep bringing videos like this for you every single day. Share this video with a friend who's been preparing for CAT 2025 but does not have enough resources to prepare. I'll see you.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.